But for today, Desi and I talked about one of the some of the feedback points that we got. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today, along with this session, is, as we kind of debrief towards the end, is how some of these movements and how some of the things in this session can help when, everybody's at home, working from home, and you're sitting for a lot of the day. I know for a lot of normal jobs that may not change. Being at home may not change how much you're sitting, but since you're at home and you have the availability to be potentially a little bit more flexible with your schedule, just trying to add a few things in to make sure that you're maintaining proper movement and proper health throughout a day of sitting, being on the computer, doing phone calls, conference calls, things like that. So we'll kind of go through the same sort of structure that we did last time, where we go through a warm up, we'll do some core activation, and then our skill section and our sort of auxiliary exercises are going to be geared towards focusing on some more posterior chain stuff. So if you're sitting, and I have my chair here, so we'll get a little bit more into depth with this, but if you're sitting all day and you're consistently in a position where you have hips flexed, you're bent over, you may be reaching over here so your shoulders are flexed, potentially flexed out in front of yourself. Those are positions that we just want to make sure that we're being aware of, that those are now becoming very chronic positions, and we can do exercises to try and balance some of that stuff out. So again, if anybody has any questions during this thing, I have my earpiece in, so please feel free to unmute yourself, ask any questions. We'll go for a little bit more volume today on some of these exercises than we did last weekend, but yeah, we'll jump right in.
And yeah, and you guys, throughout this process too, I'll be providing a little bit of commentary on what this means for you. I know you all personally and what you're working on, so it's likely that I'll cue Ben on some things that we have chatted during coaching calls, and you're probably going to hear me grunt and breathe hard, which is, I'm sure, just the best thing in the world to you. But go ahead.
Right on. Cool. So what we're going to start with, very similar warm up to last time. So get yourself set in a decent position here. So my feet are about shoulder width apart. And I'm going to start, we're going from top to bottom. So we're starting with the neck. So I'm standing, feet shoulder width apart. I'm going to tuck my chin down to my chest and draw a nice big circle with my chin, as large as I can. We're going to go about 4 times one way, and then we'll flip and we'll go 4 times the other way. During these neck circles, try and just make sure that it's just your neck and head that are moving, and you're not bringing your shoulders and your spine with you. And then once you've done 4 one way, let's flip it around and go the other way. Excellent. All right. Once you've done your 4 neck circles each way, we'll keep those feet set. We'll go arms straight out, palms are down. We'll start with some small arm circles and gradually build them up into big arm circles. Start to get the shoulders warmed up. Once you've gone to big arm circles, we're going to flip, have the palms up, and we're going to start going backwards arm circles, starting small and building up into big arm circles. From there, we're going to take the arms and we're going to do some swings across the body. Give yourself a little hug. Try and get your hands all the way back to slap your shoulder blades. And then we're going to alternate these arm swings. So we're going up and down.
Something good to keep in mind here, guys. If you're waking up in the morning and you're sore, day-to-day soreness is not a normal thing. That means that we're not recovering properly. So this mobility sequence right here is a really good morning routine item. So going back at the recordings and taking a look at this and see how you can do this is going to be huge.
Right. All right. And then next, we're going to do start transitioning into the trunk. So now we're keeping the trunk settled, and we're going to do some trunk twists. So now I'm rotating my shoulders left to right, again, keeping my feet set. And then I'll face this way. We're going to bend those hips just a little bit with a little bend in the knees. And we're going to keep that rotation similar to a golf swing. Excellent. And the next one that we'll do, incorporating some trunk rotation, is we're going to do this angled chop with a little bit of a quarter squat. So as my hands go down towards my hips, I get a little squat, and then I'm going to rotate up the opposite direction. Again, we'll do about maybe 10 of these on one side, and then we'll flip. Once your hands are down by the hips, you're in that quarter squat position, and then you go up and rotate across. Excellent. Next, we'll work on just stretching out the obliques on the sides here. So we'll take the hands, grab one wrist, reach overhead, and we're just going to push the hips out to the side, alternating sides. Perfect. All right. Next, what we're going to do, if you have something that you can stabilize yourself on, great. If not, you can just hold yourself in place. But we're going to do our forward to backward leg swings. And again, we're not trying to get a ton of range of motion. We're just getting the hips warmed up in the flexion extension. Then we'll flip sides. Again, just forward to backward leg swing. Excellent. So for this next exercise, you can stay standing. Again, feel free to support yourself on something, but now we're going to work on some hip circles. So I have my right hand secured on this, this post over here, and I'm going to use my outside leg, my left leg. I'm going to bring my knee up, toe up. I'm going to rotate out and then keep going on that circle. So I'm trying to keep my heel as high as I can the whole time. And then you're going to bring that heel up, bring your knee back and around, and then you're in that knee up, toe up position. So starting there, knee up, toe up, rotate out, keep your heel high, keep that knee going around. And then when you're in this backward position, drive the heel up, bring your knee back and around. We'll do one more, knee up, toe up, rotate out, heel high. Then we'll bring it back around, heel up, knee out and around. Excellent. Next, just flip the side that you're on, and we'll do the right leg. So knee up, toe up, rotate out, heel high, drive the knee back. And we're going to drive the heel up, knee out and around to return to that starting position. So knee up, toe up, rotate out, heel high, knee out and around. Then bringing it back, heel up, and the knee comes back around to that starting position. Do one more. Knee up, toe up, rotate out, heel high. And we'll drive the heel back up and return to that starting position. All right, next.
Ben, is there any emphasis on the core with that too?
Yeah, so that's a good point. During that exercise, obviously doing the support allows you to not necessarily relax your core. You still want to make sure that you are bracing in some fashion, similar to how we did the core activation moves last time. Ultimately, with your core, with the core activation or core bracing, you're trying to make sure that you're eliminating unnecessary movement. So if I'm doing my hip circle, and as soon as I drive my knee out to the side and I go into that rotation, I feel myself leaning over like I'm cheating and I can't quite get my hip out there. And I'm using the rest of my trunk and my upper body to get there. That's where you want to make sure you're keeping a nice braced core so that this movement is all hip, or as much
Awesome.
hip as it can be.
Awesome.
But that's again, that's a good point. Okay, so next what we'll do is we'll take a knee. So from here, I'm gonna go hands on my hips, working outward circles. We'll do about 10. And this isn't necessarily a move we need to do both ways. You can if you want to, but it's not necessary because no matter which way we're going, clockwise or counterclockwise, we're still gonna hit all 4 directions of abduction, adduction, extension, and flexion of the hip. Okay, from here, I'm gonna stay in this lunge position. I'm gonna bring my chest down. Now my left leg is slightly forward. So I am going, my left leg is forward. So I'm gonna bring my left hand inside the knee and gently push out so I can work some external rotation stretch. And again, I'm trying to keep my foot flat. Think about driving your big toe through the ground. Excellent, stay in this position. Now take that hand that you're pushing out with that knee, rotate so you're looking up towards the ceiling. Take 3 nice deep breaths into the belly. And on that 3rd breath, inhale and exhale, come back to center. Excellent. You can bring your chest up. We'll take that leg, keep the same leg forward. Now we're gonna look at the hamstring. So the heel is down, the toe is up, the knee is slightly bent, and I'm gonna focus on leaning forward. So I'll turn a little bit to the side so you guys can see what I mean. So knee is bent, hip is bent, heel is down, toe is up. I'm gonna keep my torso pretty rigid, and I'm just gonna try and lean forward. So while we're sitting in this stretch, a very common theme that has been said about hamstring stretching is to keep the legs straight and then pull the toes back so that you feel a stretch behind your knee. So if you're feeling the stretch behind your knee, that's not necessarily where we want to feel that stretch, because all that's back here is tendons and ligaments, and we're not trying to stretch those out. We're really trying to stretch out the muscle belly. So that's why we bend the knee to shorten up those tendons and ligaments so they don't feel it, and we're feeling that stretch more in the actual meat of the hamstring. All right, I think we've stretched that enough. So we'll keep this same position now, where foot is flat, and I'm gonna drive my knee forward so I can stretch this ankle out. Go, and while you're stretching that ankle out, try and make sure that that front heel is down, and then we'll move out of that. And we'll flip sides. So now I've got my right knee up, and we'll start hands on the hips, working in circles, about 10 of these. So, and again, another common question I get about like how much of this stuff to do. Like Desi was saying, this is a good way to warm up in the morning and just get your body ready to do stuff. And a question I get is like, how much, like how many reps, how many sets? And it really all depends. Like it's a good way to check in with yourself, see what might be tight, what might be sore. And if you can address areas that might be more tight or more sore, you can do more or less of these moves just to make yourself feel better. That's an important distinction to have as well. Okay, so after the circles, we're gonna go into that Spider-Man position. So my chest is down. I'm gently pushing this knee out. There you go, and then we'll rotate out towards that front leg side, look towards the ceiling, take 3 deep breaths. On the third breath, inhale, exhale, and come back to center. All right. Next, we'll work on this hamstring. So knee stays bent, hip is bent, heel is down, toe is up. I'm going to lean forward, try and push my chest straight forward. So not necessarily bending over my knee. I'm trying to push my chest forward.
And also, guys, here's a really good way to think about this too. You know, what's easier to break, beef jerky or a juicy steak? Right. So your steak is going to have a lot more hydration in it. So right now, as you are practicing what you have right here, if you're already feeling thirst, those are telling signs right there of dehydration before this work has started. So water needs to be a part of the mix at all times.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So now we stretch the hamstring. So we'll bring the foot back flat to the ground. And now I'm going to push my knee forward to stretch out my ankle. Excellent. All right. So what we'll do is we'll finish with a couple of core activation exercises. Like any true strength coach, I have stopwatches just hanging in my apartment. So we're going to start on the floor. I'll make sure I can get in a position so everyone can see. So we're going to do a set of dead bugs. We're going to do a set of planks front and a set of side planks. We're just going to do one set, 30 seconds of each. Again, good way to work on core bracing to start the day. So with dead bugs, I'm going to lay flat on my back. My head's going to be down. I'm trying to rotate my pelvis so my lower back is flat on the floor. I'm going to bring my knees up so my hips and my knees are at 90-degree angles. My arms are extended straight above my shoulders, and all I'm going to work on is extending one leg at a time. Okay? Ready? And go. So one leg extends at a time. The other leg stays bent at that 90-90 position. And during this, you should be breathing to the point where you still feel like your core is braced and you're pushing your core out, but you're not holding your breath. There you go, and done. Excellent, relax. So next we'll flip it over so you're face down, and we're gonna go into a front plank. So as we went through last time, I'm gonna start here, forearms are down, start with my knees bent so I can get into my position, and then I'm going to extend one leg out, extend the other leg, and we're up. My core is tight, core is braced, glutes are tight. I'm trying to hold this solid position. Again, breathing so that you can keep your core tightness, but you're not holding your breath. And done. Excellent. Next exercise, we're just going to do a side plank on each side. For this, if you need to go from your knees, that's fine. If not, we'll stack the legs on top of one another. My elbow is underneath my shoulder. I'm going to bring my hips up, squeeze my glutes, and we're up. My top hand is up. Again, you want to have a straight line running from the top of your head down to your feet. And done. We'll flip sides, hit this other side. Same position, either off your knees or feet are stacked, elbows under the shoulder. Then we're going to raise the hips up. We're up, top hand is extended. And done. All right. So hopefully everybody's feeling nice and activated, nice and loose. You need to take a second and grab a quick drink. Go right ahead.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So the next section that we're going to go through, similar to last week where we went over the skill section and we talked about the squat and we talked about the push-up and the row. We're going to look at 3 exercises today. We're looking at the squat again. We're looking at the hinge, so a hip hinge, and then we're going to a single arm row. As far as using weight, you can use, I have a backpack right here. So just to go through having really just an informal piece of equipment. If you have weights, obviously you can do this with weights more formally, but if you just have a backpack, that's fine as well. But again, ultimately the goal for today is to look at exercises that can help when you are sitting for a long period of time. So if I have my chair here, if I'm constantly in a seated posture where again, my shoulders are rounded, my core is not really braced, it's just kind of like there, and I'm typing a lot all day or I'm on the phone or whatever it is. The difference between this position and a good squat position, which we're going to work on right now, is starting to look at the movement of the hip hinge. So as I'm pushing my butt back and I'm working on getting more hip extension with the movement, and there's different ways to do the squat. One where you can be more upright and you can break your knees first and you can start bending at the knees. And it's a little bit more anterior quad dominant. The way we're going to focus on it is we're going to even just use the chair if you want to try and focus on pushing the butt back, keeping a nice tall posture and getting good hip extension through that movement. So from the side, again, I'm looking at keeping myself nice and rigid, core is braced, pushing the butt back into that squat position, and then coming back up. So if for depth purposes, you want to just go to a chair, that's fine. This is a good way to control how deep you're getting in your squat. Last time we talked about not necessarily on the squat needing to get all the way, ass to grass. But what the chair can do is can just give you a good range of motion to work through. And if you say throughout the day, every 20, 30 minutes, you just stand up from your chair and you rip out a set of 10 squats, it's a good way to stay moving. So for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to do freestanding. If you want to use a chair for depth control, that's fine. And then if you want to use a backpack for weight, or if you want to use any formal weights, you go right ahead. So with the backpack, you can load this up by just putting it on. Other methods could be to hold it in front, but we're going to focus on a squat that is back-loaded, so that way my emphasis is on keeping my knees tracking over my feet, but pushing my hips back and sitting down to depth. So we're going to do 3 sets of 8 reps. All right. So you guys can go on your own. Just go controlled on the way down. It doesn't have to be the 4-second eccentric we did last time, but just nice controlled 3 sets of 8 squats. Feel free to load these up however you want. And after you've done your first set of 8, give yourself a good minute to rest, recover. If you want to load up the next set, go grab your weight. Otherwise, just give yourself a second to catch your breath, and then we'll go to the next set of squats.
Hey, Ben, into this next set, because I know a lot of us are used to just getting instruction and just banging these out and going to the next set. But while they're doing their second set of 8, can you talk about time under tension?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So as we talked about, I sort of mentioned it last time with the eccentrics being a way for us to get the same time under tension as doing like a high volume set. So for instance, today we're doing 3 sets of 8. Last time we only did sets of 4. And we're still maximizing how we're recruiting muscle fiber. So let's say last time we did sets of 4, but we focused on eccentrics going slow on the way down. The way those muscle fibers are overlaying, they're increasing in the amount of tension as they lengthen. And then once we go into the concentric part where you start to explode up, that contraction of getting those muscle fibers to concentrically get shorter, that's going to create a powerful explosive movement. If we increase the time under tension, say eccentrically, that motion where those muscle fibers lengthen but stay neurologically charged, that's going to create a stronger contraction than any other muscle action you can think of. A strong, slow, eccentric movement is going to create the largest amount of motor recruitment that the body can handle and the body can produce. Yep. So yeah, so we're still working through those squats. If you haven't done your second set, knock that out. And then if you've done that, give yourself another minute, and then we'll rock into that third set of 8. All right. Everybody done 3 sets?
Yeah, I think everyone's at 3. I think Elmira's finishing up first.
Yeah. Cool. Right on. So I'll talk about the next movement that we're going to do, which we're focusing on the hip hinge. And I'm calling it a hinge because it's been called a lot of things in different exercises, whether it's a deadlift, a kettlebell swing, and RDL. There's different ways to accomplish this particular movement. But when we say hinge, we're looking at this movement of hip flexion to extension with minimal movement about the knee. And the reason why this is an important exercise, especially if you spend a lot of time sitting, is as you sit, these muscles passively get stretched out and get longer by the nature of being bent over and being stuck in this flexion extension position. So we are going to use what I just talked about, that time under tension. We're using this movement to create a strong eccentric lengthening of these fibers of the glutes and the hamstrings, and then a concentric movement as well. So for right now, we're just going to work on a strength-based lower velocity movement, such as an RDL. It seems like everybody's got some sort of weight or something like that. So I have a kettlebell here. If you have a kettlebell or a dumbbell, either or is fine. From a front view, I'm going to keep my feet a little bit narrower than if I was squatting. So my feet are maybe a little bit more like hip width. But again, chest is big, my core is braced, a little bend in my knees, and I'm going to focus on going through this full range of motion where I'm extending my hips back, or I'm flexing my hips, pushing them back, and then coming up strong. And same as the squats, we're going to do 3 sets of 8 here. So if you're wondering too about how low you should go on this movement, how far you should extend down, it doesn't have to be all the way down to the floor. If you push your hips back, the minute you start to feel your glutes and hamstrings are getting stretched, that's when you want to start coming up. That's a good place to start. So that way it might just be down to your knees. It could be a little bit further than that. As you get more comfortable with this movement and you start to feel more warmed up, you can extend your depth down a little bit lower. And then as far as breathing is concerned, exercise like this, really on most exercises, there's been one idea that like you should always exhale on effort. And when they say effort, they mean the concentric movement. So that would be an inhale up top, hold the breath, brace the core. And then as soon as you're going into your concentric movement, so that would be your extension to coming back to standing, you an exhale. So you'd exhale on the way up. That exhalation is a good way to squeeze the core muscles and then be able to keep that brace throughout. If you feel like you lose your posture and you start to bend in your spine, then you want to make sure you're just keeping your breath held as long as you can to keep your torso rigid. Again, when I say holding your breath, obviously let's not go to the point where you're feeling lightheaded and you're about to pass out, but you're able to keep your core tight. And again, a good way to incorporate these moves, because these are fairly simple moves, you can set a timer for yourself. If you're working, let's say you have a block of time where you're working for maybe 3-4 hours before taking a meal break. Set a timer for every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes. Do a set of 10, do a set of 8, something like that, where you can get these movements in and you can keep your body moving throughout the day. All right. I think everybody done their three. Perfect. Okay. So the last move that we'll do, this is more of an upper body move, but the way that we're going to do it is to try to incorporate a lot more core bracing and a lot more hip bracing. So we're going to do a single arm row. So again, if you have an implement, if you have a weight, a dumbbell, great. But so I have a kettlebell here, but again, I can even just use my backpack and grab the handle here. But the way that we're going to do this, some would call this like a chainsaw row, or lawnmower row, where I'm going to be in a split position, not unlike that lunge that we were in during the warm-up, but extend this back leg so this glute is tight and everything up through here, core is braced. If my right leg is back, my right arm is doing the rowing. So I'm going to lean over. If I need to support myself on my bent leg, I will. And then from here, I'm driving my elbow back towards my back hip pocket, basically. So from here, we're again going to do 3 sets of 8 of this. And I want you to feel like when you get to this point, when you row all the way back, you're pulling your shoulder blade back towards your spine and keeping a lot of tension throughout your lower back and then through your thoracic as well. And there certainly are a lot of different ways to accomplish a single arm row. Another way that you can do this is not by in that lunge position. You can stand straight up, which if you're in this kind of square athletic stance and you're rowing, as that weight comes down, think of it trying to pull you into rotation. So you're not only bracing your core just to keep yourself solid, but you're resisting that rotation and doing your shoulder movement at the same time. So you're getting basically multiple different planes of movement, or at least multiple different planes of tension throughout that same exercise. And then another way, if you want to challenge your balance, would be if you to go from your lunge position and put more balance on that front leg and do a single stance supported single arm row. That would probably be the most challenging way of doing it. But it would certainly be pretty good if you can get there. So certainly try it. Give it a try if you can hold your balance doing that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's challenging.
Yeah,
it's tough. But again, these are 3 kind of core movements as we're looking at a squat, a hinge, and a row. These are really, really basic movement patterns that have a ton of variety to them. We could spend all day talking about the different kinds of squats, the different kinds of hinges, and the different kinds of rows that you could do. But ultimately, the point of going through these is to let you know all of these 3 moves activate this posterior chain differently. And when combined, they can make sure that your backside, from your actual upper body through your lower body and your core, those things are all going to be maintained throughout a day where you might be sitting a lot. And then one last point about these, the way that you can sort of build your own workouts off of these is by changing up different variables of volume and intensity. So volume meaning how many sets, how many reps. Volume can also mean how long are you doing the exercise for. So to the point of time under tension, do you have a high volume of time under tension? Are you doing a lot of eccentric reps? Are you doing just a lot of reps, period? Are you doing a set of 15 normal reps? Are you doing a set of 5 reps with a 10-second eccentric? Like, those are all ways to modulate this. And intensity can also mean how hard are you working? Like, are you lifting a lot of weight? Are you lifting it for a long time? Those are ways that you can change this up based on what your particular goals are. And we'll talk a little bit more at the very end about how to match that up with some of your fueling. But I think we're just about set with these 3 sets. Let everybody finish up.
You guys, this is all really good too. I mean, for some of us, we are working to manage our blood sugars and to balance those out. Even if we're not doing that, balancing your blood sugars is a really great way to make sure that you have sustainable energy throughout the day. Depending on what time you ate breakfast, let's say right now it's 12 o'clock, you ate breakfast at 8 or 9, you could probably eat a piece of fruit beforehand to fuel this workout and then crush your lunch, which you're going to have a better insulin response based off of the work that you just did. So these are all pointers that would just be really good for you to continue to optimize, these advanced nutrition strategies as it pertains to things that we're doing here with Ben.
Absolutely. Okay, looks like we're all set. So last section that we're going to tackle today before we debrief is we're going to do some core movements, kind of typical core exercises, plus one additional thoracic mobility exercise that I really like for all day sitting. So we're going to go back on the floor. We'll go face up, and we're going to go right into a set of glute bridges. So I have my knees bent, my heels are underneath my knees, my shoulders are stable on the floor, my hands are down by my hips, and I'm going to squeeze my glutes, raise my hips up and create a bridge from my shoulders to my knees, slow down, extend up. So we're going to do this repetitively for a set of 10. Should feel a good tightness in the glutes and hamstrings. Once you've done your 10, we're going to flip over so we're on all fours. And the next move that we are going to do is a bird dog. So I am on all fours, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. I'm going to extend my opposite arm and leg. So my right arm and my left leg extend, then come back to all fours, switch sides, left arm, right leg. And I'm going to alternate between these two. I'm trying to keep my core tight by thinking about sucking my belly button to my spine. And again, we're going to do 20 total, 10 on each side. There you go. Once you're done with your set of bird dogs, we're going to go to a tall kneeling position. So both knees are down. And I'm now working just on my thoracic rotation. So my fingers are interlaced behind my head. I'm going to take a deep breath in and rotate to my right as far as I can. Take the breath out. Take another deep breath in. Exhale and come to center. We'll do that to the left side. Inhale, rotate, hold it, let the breath out. Take another inhale, and then exhale, come to center. We're going to go 2 more times each way. So you're doing 3 total on each. Inhale, rotate right, let it out. Inhale again. Exhale, return to center. Go left side, inhale. Exhale. Inhale again. Exhale, come to center. Last time each way. Inhale, rotate right. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, come to center. Last time left. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale again. Exhale, come to center. Awesome. We're going to go through those 3 for just 1 more set. So 10 glute bridges, 10 each side bird dogs, and 3 each side thoracic rotations. All right. You guys can feel free to go on your own. Start off on the back. Again, knees bent, heels underneath. Raise the hips up. Slow on the way down. Keep that control, keep that core bracing. Go for your 10 reps. Good. Once you're done with those 10, flip it back over to your quadruped. Go into those bird dogs, 10 each side. And then lastly, tall kneeling, 3 rotations each side. Remember, it's 2 breaths for every rotation. Deep breath in. Exhale. Breathe in again. Exhale, come to center. 3 times each way. All right. Excellent. So that is the time that we have today. Again, we went a little bit longer than I thought. That tends to happen when I start talking. Again, hope that this provided some insight. I know that like these workouts, at least last week and this week, the movements, we've kept them fairly basic, but there's a lot of variety that we can do with these, not only in the type of movement, but in volume and intensity to make these really challenging workouts based on your fitness goals. And they all can match up with the way that you're fueling. So if you're doing heavy time under tension, you're doing a lot of eccentrics, you're doing basically things to work on building strength, there's a proper way to fuel to build strength. If you're doing this to try and, you know, get a conditioning stimulus to lose some weight, there's another way to fuel to then support that. And also to, you know, if you want to gain muscle, same way, there's a way to fuel so that's the goal. So yeah, I'll turn it back over to Desi to finish up on any of those notes.
Yeah, no, this was awesome. And you guys, this is just one of those mindset things, you know, constantly things that we preach in here is, you know, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so when we're trying to be productive and efficient in the way that we move here, you know, this is the science behind a lot of what we're trying to achieve. So this is a bit more slower pace, but we can definitely hike it up in the ways that Ben is offering these modifications. So as you are doing this and you're like, hey, like I need to put more weight on, or I need to do this, obviously grabbing some dumbbells, grabbing some things where you can provide more time under tension is always going to be something that would be beneficial. From the standpoint of food throughout the day, again, we're going back to this classic model of that balanced plate. You know, when in doubt, protein, carbs, fat, and color, because we need to help you recover from this workout. If you are sore from this workout 2-3 days from now, because it's different, then we got to chat during our coaching calls to make sure that we're practicing proper recovery. But yeah, Ben, this was awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. And if anybody has any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. Desi's got my contact info.
Yeah, I'll be sure to put that in Slack as well. But yeah, okay. All right, guys. Go